Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I call the York County Board of Commissioners meeting to order for July 16th, 2025. It's great to see our friend, veteran Fred Rudisil, who will lead us in the pledge, and Dr. Pastor Waldhauer to lead us in the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning.
Morning.
Heavenly Father, we thank you today for the leaders you have given us, positions of authority in our county. We ask for your wisdom, the guidance. They make decisions that affect the lives of our citizens. Grant them the discernment to understand the needs of all, especially those who are the vulnerable among us. In the words of Micah, we ask, oh God, that they would do what's right, love mercy, and walk humbly before you. We ask, oh God, that you would bless them each upon their own individual lives as they guide us in this community for a greater service to your name. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 2nd, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll turn it over to Mr. Dahl.
Here you go. Get this to work. Good morning, everyone. I have several things I'd like to touch on. The first is regarding an emergency declaration. Due to the recent storms and flooding, our emergency management agency had reached out and requested an emergency declaration to be executed to allow them access to some additional resources and funding. Since the agenda was already posted at the time, it was not part of the initial regular posting, but we've since added it as an emergency. I would recommend that we ratify this as item 26. Second is item 19 on the agenda. This is a motion to ratify an agreement with York College. York College provided space at no cost to allow us to recognize 50-year voters, so voters who have consistently voted for the last 50 years. It was a great event, well attended. I think there was close to, it was 299 people recognized, but there was about 300 people total, which included about 100 or so 50-year voters plus family members. So great event. The next thing, I'd like to recognize Anna Farah. She is a student from York Suburban. She's a rising senior. She has an interest in government as well as public service, so she has been shadowing our departments. So she's here observing today, and she's going to get to spend some time with our HR team later this afternoon. And last but not least, item 9. So I don't know, Kennetha Hanson, if you would like to come up and share a little bit.
Thank you. I'm here today, but maybe a little bit of background. I'm with the York County Economic Alliance, but today I'm wearing my redevelopment authority of the County of York hat. Our organization staffs an array of entities, RACI being one of them. Before you today are I think 6 resolutions on behalf of 6 nonprofit or for-profit businesses in York County that have very high impact projects that have received a RACP award. As you probably know, and for the audience, RACP is the state's premier grant program. That is a matching program that funds, again, very high impact projects. The agreements before you today are routine agreements. When a grantee is not a municipality, the Commonwealth requires a cooperation agreement with the host municipality. So that is a very long story short, so to speak.
Okay.
I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, Claire?
That concludes my report.
Okay. All right, we will open it up to to public comment for any items listed on the agenda. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to new business.
I would like to make a motion, Madam President, to adopt items 1 through now 26, as number 26 has been recently added since it was posted yesterday and explained by Mr. Dahl, and make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. There were no executive sessions since our last meeting. Just 2 items under other business. One relates to the emergency declaration that Mr. Dahl highlighted. Just to give some information to the community, our emergency services throughout the county handled 93 calls for service between 3:45 p.m. and 9:50 p.m. during the storm on July 14th. As noted earlier, we ratified an emergency declaration. Both East Hopewell Township and Chanceford Township have issued declarations of emergency for their specific municipality. We do anticipate there might be some additional municipalities that do that, but because the county has issued one, that's overarching, that would cover any of the municipalities in York County. There are 3 state roads that remain closed in the county, State Road 124, State Road 2028, and State Road 2033. There are multiple municipal roads that still remain closed. Power has been restored to most homes. As of this morning, there were only 49 residents who were still without power. Both our emergency management teams and Pennsylvania emergency management teams were on site conducting damage assessments on infrastructure throughout the county. That was yesterday. Municipalities and residents are encouraged to report damages through the damage reporting tool, which is located on the York County Emergency Management website. If you are a York County resident and you are experiencing flooding in your home and you require assistance, please contact our Office of Emergency Management at 717-840-2990. And please do be safe out there. There's still some water on roadways and trees down and wires down, so just please be careful. The other item is the York State Fair, the oldest running state fair in our nation, opens on Friday, July 18th, and will run through Sunday, July 27th. So if you're looking for something to do, I would encourage you to check out the York State Fair and see what agriculture in our community is all about. So with that, I will open it up for any public comment. If you could just state your name and municipality, and please keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Thomas Pulp. My family is from York County. My father's side, my mother's from Adams County. We've been here over 150 years at least. To be very frank and blunt, elections have consequences. Federal, state, local. In this county, there's a minimum of 3,000 Haitian immigrants, and until they verify that they're legal immigrants, they need to have ICE officers come here and take them. You can tell Congressman Gill of Texas and Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia if I'm not accurate, because they're part of my information, along with Dan Bongino, who's the Deputy Director of the FBI, and Mark Levin, who's an award-winning author and radio host who's globally recognized, who verifies this stuff with more footnotes than you could count. These Haitian immigrants with immigrants from Jamaica and Africa are preferred to come here because simply they don't vote like the Asians or the Latinos. 90% of them will vote Democrat, if not all of them. In our country, in year 2000, George W. Bush won by 900 votes, and that just to get the Electoral College win. And in 2004, he barely won a second time, had John Kerry gotten 40,000 votes over 3 states out west, he would have been the president in 2004 instead of Bush. The margins are that thin. We have to have election integrity. Elon Musk is an immigrant from South Africa. He's now the wealthiest man in the world. He came to this country with a shirt in his back and not much more. When he says the immigrants are here to flood the voting booth, I have more faith in his opinion than any politician, regardless of what party, except for Donald Trump himself. Both men have suffered physically and financially, though Trump's obviously still a billionaire, and so is Elon Musk. They've taken quite a loss, as well as being threatened, okay? It's about time that we're going to have election integrity. We have legitimate election integrity where people have to verify who they are, where they live, and they only vote once. If you have property in another state or in another county, if you pay taxes there, you should vote there. In addition to that, people from outside of this state are coming here to help with the immigrants to sway our elections by saying, well, it simply had more votes than you did. Now, if you're a legal American citizen, I don't have a problem with you being here, but you should come here for a better reason than just to turn Pennsylvania into a one-party rule state.
Sir, you have half a minute.
California and New York, the state of Maryland, which is an exception, and the state of Illinois are lopsided, one-sided Democrat rule, okay? It's about damn time that people like me are given a choice and a chance at the voting booth without having to worry about elections being stolen. And by the way, we will have it verified before Trump leaves office, and if not, soon after that it was stolen in 2020, and I will say that with conviction intellectually, morally, and spiritually. And furthermore, with the accusation of racism toward Trump or Trump voters, 70% of the black children in this country have a single unmarried mother.
Sir, your time is up.
There's a verse of the Bible, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, if any provide not for his own, especially those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. That's the New Testament and the Old King James Version of the Bible. You'll never hear it in the church preached.
Dr. Larry Walthour, Senior Pastor, Shiloh Baptist Church here in York, Pennsylvania. Give me your tired, your poor. Give me your huddled masses yearning to be free. These are the words of democracy. These are the words of freedom. These are the words of liberty. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And even though we have an immigration crisis in this country, I stand here to go on record to say that I'm offended that Haitian immigrants, Jamaican immigrants, and African immigrants are outlined as the problem in our society. We have a plethora of problems in this country, and we all know that. But there are also others from other countries who've outstayed their visas, who do not come from the countries that were named by our guest this morning. And so, regardless of your political ideology, that's a part of what makes America, America. The freedom of choice, the freedom of speech, and the freedom to come here the right way. And so I think when we address the public and when we address our elected officials who've been voted upon by Republicans and Democrats to sit on this dais and make decisions that affect all of us, when we address them, let us address them with the respect and the integrity that they deserve and this community deserves, because we are all one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, if I could have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned, and we will move on to Salary Board.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 4th, 2025 Salary Board meeting as submitted.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I will open it up for any public comment related to items on the agenda. Hearing and seeing none, we can move on to item number 4.
I'll make a motion to approve the positions, salaries, hours of work, and fringe benefits as provided by existing collective bargaining agreements or as set forth in the York County Employee Handbook or York County Policy Manual for the following departments and row offices as stated below, with no additional benefits or concessions unless otherwise noted, and there is listed in the agenda.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. There were no executive sessions since our last meeting. I will open up for any public comment. Hearing and seeing none, before we adjourn, since our intern is with us today, just to provide you a little education. So the salary board by statute, there are 4 members that sit on that, the 3 commissioners plus the county controller. We will have retirement board next, and by statute, the 3 commissioners, the county controller, in addition, our county treasurer sit on the retirement board. So with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We'll move on to retirement board.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 16th, 2025 Retirement Board meeting as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I will open it up for public comment related to items on the agenda. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to new business.
I make a motion to ratify the following individuals on the May monthly annuity payment list as listed below.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to ratify the following individuals on the June monthly annuity payment list as listed below.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to ratify the following vested individuals on the June monthly annuity payment list as listed below.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I make a motion to approve the following individuals on the July monthly annuity payment list as listed below.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Last motion for today.
I make a motion to approve the following vested individuals on the July monthly annuity payment list as listed below.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, Lee. How are you? So we'll have an update from Lee Martin, who is the Managing Director of Marquette
Thank you.
Associates.
Morning. Yeah.
Sir?
Turned on? Oh yeah, great. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy to see everybody this morning, and very happy to report on, again, some more good results. And I think, as you've all seen in the recent weekly summaries we send, you've gone through a new milestone as a fund here, actually north of 600 million, which is pretty impressive. And but before we sort of get into where we are today, just going to do a quick review of the first quarter, and then I'll bring you up to speed. Actually, in your booklets at the back there is a second quarter update, but bear in mind that your alternatives, we don't have those numbers yet. So take that with a bit of pinch of salt, but I'll give you some indication of where we are year to date. But will you be able to drive, or am I driving with this?
I can do it, or you can.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we'll start here. We'll just take a couple of minutes just to look back at Q1. And if you remember, in Q1, we did get for a first time in 3 years, a negative GDP print. However, I've cautioned everybody about that was a bit of a one-off, because what you saw was a lot of firms were trying to get ahead of the tariffs and front-loading their orders for the years. because of the initial tariff date at the beginning of April there. And that, basically, that net trade impact was negative. You're going to probably see a little bit of stronger positive print here, though, in the second quarter because, the economy is still chugging along quite well. But because we spent so much, as companies in the first part of the year, expectations are growth will be revised a little lower for this year. And it's not unusual, we'll expect slower growth in the second half of the year. There's only so much money in these budgets. And when you look at consumer spending, that has started to come down now. You see that in the bottom there, CEO and consumer spending. And as you know, in the US, consumer spending drives about 2/3 of GDP. So expectations now are for about 1.5 to 2% GDP for the year. This doesn't work for me, so if you could go to the next page for me, thank you. And then just quickly on if we look ahead at some kind of leading indicators, I think one thing to note here, when you look at manufacturing surveys, etc., again, suggesting a bit of a slowdown as the year goes on. But the labour market has still been quite resilient. In fact, unemployment just ticked down to 4.1 again. So that's one great point that the Fed are following. And then secondarily, it's inflation. Now, we did see inflation jump right in at the beginning of the year. That is totally normal. It's what you would expect. A lot of rents shelled up and prices kind of readjust at the beginning of the year. But since then, we've seen inflation, so although it's sort of remained sticky, it has been still trending down, but just not at the rate they would have expected if there was no tariffs in place. But I just heard the PPI, core PPI number came out today. Month-to-month inflation was flat. And when you look at the 1 year now, it's about 2.5 core PPI. So inflation is in a good place. So the big question now is what we're going to hear from the Fed. And right now, the markets are priced in two rate cuts for the year. Expectation is you probably will bypass July here. But come September, we would expect a rate cut with all things, continuing as they are. The only uncertainty there is between now and then, we do have that August 1st next tariff date coming on. So there'll be some uncertainty around that. But I think, by the time we get to third week in September when the Fed meet, they should be in a position, hopefully, to start bringing rates down again. So if you just go forward 2 pages, just what did it mean for indices, just quickly. Sorry, back one more. Actually, yeah. Sorry, 2 pages in your book, 1 on here. I've condensed this for us. So you can quickly see, no surprise with a negative GDP print. First quarter US stocks were negative, down nearly 5%. If you look under the hood, we did see a big pivot change in the quarter. If you remember the last couple of years, all you've heard from me is the Mag 7, the Mag 7, the Mag 7 has driven the markets. We had a big change. They kind of sold off at the beginning of the year. And we've had to switch more to the more defensive, higher quality, dividend-paying type areas of the market, industrials, energy, utilities, which sort of led the way in Q1. So think of that when you look at your portfolio. Is a bit more higher quality, so we would expect it to do better in that market. So we'll touch that in a minute. What I will say, since the end of the first quarter, since the middle of April, we have had a 3-month period, which is the 4th largest gain in the stock market in history. Mm-hmm. So we've had a tremendous run since then, and it's been a little bit of a pivot back to what we saw last year, again, with technology, et cetera, leading the way. But just something to be mindful of here when we look at performance. If we go to international stocks, that's what they've been the huge play this year. Really a combination of 2 things. One, a softer dollar. We've had a bit of fiscal austerity here in the US, and expansion in Europe, and with the US sort of pulling back from being the world's police, and the demands on Europe to start investing more. Germany had that €500 investment in the infra and defense names. So you've really seen, international stocks lead the way this year. And then, as I said, in that first quarter, 4% of that gain is due to the 4% decline in the US dollar. We look at bonds, first quarter, we got a bit of a rate cut there, so no surprise to see a great return from bonds, up nearly 3%. And then sub-investment grade just a little bit behind that. Think of that like levered loans, etc. Again, since middle of April, we've seen a bit of a reversal there again, and a sub-investment grade leading core bonds. And then finally, at the bottom of the page, these are the listed equivalents of the privates that you have on inflation-sensitive assets. The listed ones just follow sort of where rates go. If rates come down, you'll see big returns in REITs, listed infra, and that's what we saw there again for the quarter, quite a bit positive above US equities. Any comments on the economy? If not, we'll just hit the highlights of your three pools. Okay. So as you can see here, you finished the quarter at $567 million. And, you heard all the news, markets were down, and actually your policy index was negative for the quarter. But because of all the diversification you've done, you guys are actually positive, even net of all your fees. You're about 100 basis points ahead of your benchmark in that down market period, which we sort of would expect, as you know, because we do sort of lean you into more of the higher quality, being a, funded defined benefit plan with a big, pension fund liability. It is always, err on the side of caution. Make sure you invest aggressively enough to hit that assumed rate of return, but let's not try and, this is not our own money in our pockets that we're trying to gamble and try and get the best return ever, because you get a bad period, then that can really impact the fund. So steady Eddie, done really well in the down market. And you can see the things that have worked well for you, just as I said, that higher quality equities, but more importantly, all the diversifying assets you put in. Real estate's now been positive. Your infrastructure's been doing great. And if you heard yesterday in Pittsburgh where they had the event there, and I think Larry Fink came out and said he sees the next 10 years as the great period for infrastructure. So glad we've had you guys in it quite a bit before that comes out. So that's been doing really well for you. And obviously, more recently, your private equity and private credit have been very accretive. What didn't work as well was just these smaller allocations to shorter duration credit, which obviously lag as rates come down. Now, the good news since then, I think at the end of the second quarter, and that's we're still holding all your 25% of your alternatives at the March number, you're up about 6.3% now for year to date. But as we sit here today with the fund at about $604 million, by the time you price in your alternatives, you're probably at, or if not, slightly above your assumed rate of return already for the year. So great recent period there. And why has your funding been improving? If you look at the 5 years, and remember your actuary is looking at that 5-year number and smoothing those losses and gains, you can see you've made over 11% a year over that period. So that is why with your assumed rate of return of 6.8, you've got a lot of gains in your portfolio, which will help if we have a bad couple of years coming up. We've got a lot in the bank there that will help sort of limit any negative impact on your funded ratio. And that put you in the top quartile of all pension funds here in the US. But as I say, that beta at 0.93 means you're only capturing about 93% of the market, which is why you didn't go down as much in that first quarter. When markets are roaring, you won't go up as much as well, but you're trying to hit 6.8% a year. Okay, there were some changes that occurred in the quarter. If I go to the next page, I think I had that in there. So you can see, you only hear from me for 15, 20 minutes every quarter, but there's a lot goes on every week. The controllers department and the team always on the phone with us, whether it's for benefit payments, we need to raise cash, or whatever's needed here. Here you can see in Q1, your negative flow is very small, at only 160,000. That is because of the first part of the year, you're sort of making your contributions through your ADC. And then the latter half of the year, you'll see that negative cash flow increase as we're having to sell assets to pay down. But just sort of note here some of the changes you can see within the international that were made which have been very accretive. The fund we added, WCM, in the second quarter was up over 17% for the pool. So it's been a great start there. And then you can see the real estate dividends that we were taking. You've been taking close to $1 million a year, not reinvesting back in real estate. We've turned that off now for the second quarter, so you guys are starting to get back to your target in real estate. And then you can see there's ongoing private equity calls, and there's a little bit of rebalancing as well. So just want you guys to understand there's a lot that goes behind the scenes on a daily basis that culminate in the good performance. If you go to the next page, in your books, it'll be page 26. This is just your performance compared to 1,500, other defined benefit plans, public plans here in the US. And just a good thing to see here, from the rankings point of view, you're right at the top, going around whether it's 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So top quartile for one of them periods. So, that's where we want to sort of keep you. That 3, 5, 7 years is in that white space right at the top there. Good relative performance. So that's the total fund. I do have some individual information on funds on the next few pages. I can go through any of these for you, or this is looking back at Q1, or if we can move on to the OPEB if you would like. Yeah, okay. So if you move forward a couple of pages. So just observations on the OPEB. If you're following along in your book, that's tab 4. If you go to the first page, similar story here. Policy index down, but you guys were positive again. That delta is not as great as you saw on the pension fund. That's purely because this is a smaller fund, doesn't have as much in your diversifying assets. It's going to be a little closer to your policy index. Also, with it being a smaller fund, to keep our costs down, you can see very low fees of about 31 bips. You index a fair amount of this. Similar things sort of worked and went against you for the quarter. I'm really happy to say in the second quarter, if you look at the update, the OPEB fund's up about 8% year to date now. I mean, it came roaring back with the stock market here in Q2. So again, another fund that, as we sit here today at least, is above our assumed rate of return. And then 5 years, again, sort of similar number here, around about 10.5%. Not quite top quartile, but in the 30th percentile. And you will look a little bit more like median on this fund because it's not as diversified as the other pool. So, as I say, everything's doing great there. And longer term, this pool has made significant gains. And as you hear me say every quarter, kudos to you guys for opening a pool and funding it years ago. Many counties don't. They still don't know they have that liability. And they're going out and raising taxes to help pay for this benefit. You've got a now $45+ million pool that is taking care of that for you. Any questions on the OPEB? Now we'll finish up on the 457. A couple more pages, and that'll be tab 5 on your book. So again, this is through the end of March, and we don't have an update yet from Empower for Q2. But finishing the end of March, just a little over 30 million. Obviously, that's gone up a fair amount again since then. And even more so here, I would say, because if you look at your equity fixed income mix, quite heavy, 80% equities, 20 in fixed. So I can imagine the gains in Q2 when we get that report from Empower are going to be pretty high because of that. Having said that, 2/3 of the folks are in the target date funds. Personally, I've been doing this for a living over 25 years. I don't have time to look at my stuff all day. I'm in a target date fund. It does the rebalancing, it glides for you. And it's very low cost, 8 basis points. So that's perfect for most folks. But of your active, you do have 12 active funds. Of those funds, 11 of them, almost all of them outperformed for the quarter. No surprise again, because if you remember, most of your funds do lean a little bit more to the quality side of things on really the notion of that you don't hear from employees when the market's going up, but you might do when the markets go down. So it's always better to at least have a good story that these funds tend to do a little better relatively when there's a bit of stress. And then things sort of trending well. Just one bit of caution, the participation rate, and I did meet with the investment committee last month and kind of brought the attention to this. See that first one on the left there, seems to have dropped from 43 to 26, which had me concerned. I mean, that was a big jump. However, it seems that there was an error there, and I know the Controller's Department has fixed that with Empower. So you will see that sort of jump back up, I think, the next quarter.
They were terminated, yeah, they were starting with including terminated employees, they hadn't taken them out. So they were already gone, but they were included in this number, so.
Yeah, they were just included
We're
in
getting
the
it
wrong
fixed,
class.
we're getting it fixed, so that's just.
Yeah. And then just the next page, or the last page I just finished on with for you guys. I say it's good to know here from the employee's point of view, if you look at that top right there, you're at that average 79%, which means if you look at the top 10% of plans, it's actually that exact number, 79%. So from an employee's point of view, the health of the employee, the member that is paying into this, you're actually in, compared to all their other DC plans, in the top 10% of DC plans. So, you know, folks have done a great job here in saving. Your employees have it in saving. And the benchmarks looking forward for them from, you know, having the assets available for when they retire, say you're in the top 10% of plans across the country, which is great to see. And then finally, what is interesting to me, if you look at the down at the bottom, this total retirement, where folks can sort of get more advice from Empower, in addition to Holly, obviously. Just a little over a quarter of your participants, you see that 26.8%, actually do that. There's probably another reason why, you know, the folks are saving quite well here. And that's about 15% of the assets. What does that tell me? Just sort of loosely, it's probably the younger folks, therefore, that are getting that advice. You know, because there's more of them there, but with less assets. So if you can think, it's probably the younger folks who are starting out in this, are getting some additional advice to help set them on the right path for the future. So all in all, I think from a relative point of view, Q1 was good. However, the total returns weren't great. But in Q2, you're going to see a much better return, as you've seen now with your fund over 600 million. Congrats on that.
Any questions for Lee? No. Any questions for Lee? Okay, thanks, as always. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, there were no executive sessions since our last meeting. I'll open it up once again for any public comment. Hearing and seeing none, if I could have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.